So, as a creative writer, what in some ways was not an issue, but how was. Because in the service of truth, denial was not an option. The facts were as pervasive and blatant in real life as the racist construction in the fairy tale was pervasive and blatant. The black sister in the fairy tale and in real life was on the bottom, socially, economically, educationally, mental health and physical health-wise. The fairy tale and the real life story were negative and had always been negative for the female descendants of the Africans who were brought here as slaves. But I had before me what you have before you today, a splendid opportunity to do it differently, to rewrite the story, to flip the script. Every time I talk about peace or the poor need not always be with us, or we are all God's chosen people, I am reminded of how it has always been. When I graduated from Brooklyn College in 1995, I remember how thrilled I was to stand or sit where you are now sitting and hear then First Lady Hillary Clinton of the United States of America speak about possibilities and responsibilities. And I remember how hard it was for me to hear her later say it was impossible for a black person, given this country's history of racism, to win a presidential election. Obama, of course, chose to rewrite history, to flip the script. The poor have always been with us, as have the rich. You almost never hear it that way. The rich have always been with us. That's usually because until something like BP's disaster in the Gulf Coast, we don't think much of them. The poor have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps when they had boots and gone from rags to riches many times. It's a common story, but still a good sell in Hollywood and the publishing industry. A far more interesting story to my mind and flip of the script might be that of the laser intelligence and open heart of Andrew Whitty, the chief executive of GlaxoSmithKline, a rich white man who said he wanted to be successful, but not by leaving the population of Africa behind. He went on to do what had never been done by an acting CEO before. He redistributed profits to Africa. The result of his effort is that Glaxo now is rated #1 on the Access to Medicine Index created in 2008 that rates pharmaceutical companies on their stance toward the poor. Last year, Glaxo pledged to keep the prices of all their AIDS drugs in poor countries to no more than 25% of what was charged in rich ones. You don't have to be an artist to flip the script. You just have to believe, yeah, it's always been like that until now, until me. Precious Jones, an obese black woman, poor and illiterate, had never been anything but an object of pity, ridicule, or a maid or a joke in Hollywood until Lee Daniels turned Push, the novel I wrote, into the movie Precious, which set a black girl dead center in her own life and world, nobody's maid or au pair, but the star of her own life and imagination. It hadn't been done before. Why? Well, they said, who wants to see a movie or read a book, for that matter, about an accursed by God with black-skinned woman? It turned out a lot of people did. The poor will always be with us. We'll never have peace in the Middle East. The AIDS virus is so mutable, no one will ever be able to make a vaccine. Childhood obesity is the byproduct of deeply entrenched cultural practices and patterns in an affluent society. Black men fill more beds in prisons than they do seats in graduate school. These are all true until you decide to make it different, flip the old script, and use the life and talents you have to change the world as we know it. Thank you.